When people look at a fully automated agency from the outside, they often imagine a complex machine full of tools that somehow coordinate themselves. But the reality is different. The heart of the automated agency is not the systems, or the workflows, or the templates. It is the decision logic. The architecture tells the agency where everything lives. The flow tells the agency how work moves. But the decision logic decides what happens next. It determines when the system should act, when it should wait, when it should escalate, and when it should stop. Without decision logic, automation becomes chaos. With it, the agency feels intentional, structured, and intelligent. In this video, I want to show you how the decision logic inside my automated agency actually works. The first thing to understand is that the agency does not think in tasks. It thinks in states. A traditional agency asks what needs to be done. An automated agency asks what state the system is in. Is someone a prospect, or a lead, or an active client, or a client in retention mode? Is a project in preparation, or in generation, or refinement, or packaging? Each state has its own rules. Each rule leads to a decision, and each decision determines the next state. This is why the agency never feels lost. It always knows exactly where each person, each project, and each deliverable is in the process. When the system detects a new prospect, it does not immediately act. It evaluates the signals. It checks intent, behavior, timing, and relevance. If enough signals stack up, the system changes the prospect's state, from unknown to aware, from aware to qualified, and each time the state changes, the decision logic activates a new set of rules. The rules determine whether to reach out, what message to send, how to personalize it, and when to follow up. Nothing is random. The system evaluates conditions and makes decisions based on those conditions. Inside the system, decisions are made by comparing inputs to thresholds. A threshold is simply a requirement. For example, if a prospect opens a message, the system increases their score. If they reply, the score increases again. If they ignore 3 messages, the score decreases. The decision logic constantly evaluates these scores. When a score crosses a threshold, a new decision is made. If the engagement score passes the interest threshold, the system begins a deeper conversation. If the qualification score passes the fit threshold, the system begins preparing the project skeleton. If the intent score passes the activation threshold, the system initiates the conversion sequence. The decisions are mechanical, not emotional. This is what makes the agency consistent. The logic becomes more interesting during communication. Humans communicate emotionally. Machines communicate logically. The system doesn't wait for a feeling, it waits for a signal. If a client asks a question, the system analyzes the question and identifies the type. Is it a clarification question, an approval question, an objection, or a feedback point? The decision logic uses this classification to choose the correct response. Some questions require an explanation, others require a confirmation, others require a follow-up question. The system always selects the response type with the highest probability of resolving the request efficiently. This is why communication feels clean. The system removes unnecessary words and focuses on clarity. In delivery, the decision logic controls the entire refinement cycle. After the system generates a first draft, it evaluates the draft against quality criteria. It checks structure, coherence, clarity, tone, and alignment with the project requirements. Each criterion receives a score. If a score does not meet the threshold, the system triggers refinement. The draft is adjusted, the scores increase, and the cycle repeats. The system does not stop refining until all criteria pass the required thresholds. This is how the deliverables feel polished, even though the system created them automatically. Decision logic also determines when to escalate something. Humans escalate based on frustration. Machines escalate based on rules. If a client hasn't responded for a certain amount of time, the system evaluates the situation. Has the client been active recently? Did the last message require input? Is the project at a critical stage? The decision logic identifies whether the system should send a reminder, wait longer, or move forward. And if something truly requires human attention, the logic triggers an escalation to the owner. Escalation is not about panic. It is about precision. The system only escalates when the rules determine that automation is no longer the most efficient option. One of the most important parts of the decision logic is prioritization. Not all tasks are equal. Some require immediate action. Others can wait. The system uses priority levels to decide what to do first. If a new prospect enters the activation threshold, that action becomes high priority because timing matters. If a client is waiting for feedback, that becomes a medium priority. If a draft needs refinement but the deadline is far away, that becomes a low priority. These priorities help the system maintain momentum. Momentum is what makes the agency feel responsive without being frantic. The decision logic also controls timing. Machines don't burn out, but they can overwhelm clients if they act too quickly. For this reason, the system evaluates time spacing. It checks how long it has been since the last message, how long since the last update, how long since the last deliverable. If too little time has passed, the system waits. If too much time has passed, the system acts. This controlled pacing makes the agency feel human, not rushed, not slow, balanced. Another key part of the logic is dependency management. Some actions cannot happen until others are completed. The system knows this. It identifies dependencies. For example, the system cannot generate a refined deliverable until the first draft exists. It cannot begin packaging until refinement is complete. It cannot send a final update until packaging is finished. Dependencies ensure that the system stays in sync. Nothing is done out of order. The flow remains stable because the logic protects it from breaking. One of the most powerful parts of the decision logic is context awareness. The system always knows what information it has. It knows the project details, it knows the client's preferences, it knows the goals, the tone, the industry, and the constraints. When making decisions, the system uses this context. This prevents generic outputs. It prevents mismatched messaging. It makes the system feel intelligent because the decisions are made based on specific information rather than general rules. The decision logic also handles exceptions. Exceptions are situations where something unusual happens. A client changes their mind. A requirement shifts. A project needs additional work. The system identifies exceptions by comparing behavior to expected patterns. If behavior deviates from the expected flow, the system triggers an exception handler. The handler adjusts the state, updates the requirements, and reevaluates the decisions. This allows the agency to remain flexible without breaking. At the core of the decision logic is evaluation. After every action, the system evaluates the outcome. Did the prospect respond? Did the client approve the deliverable? Did the refinement improve the score? Did retention increase engagement? Evaluation ensures that the next decision is better than the previous one. This continuous improvement keeps the agency evolving. The final part of the decision logic is adaptation. The agency learns from data. It identifies patterns across multiple clients, multiple projects, and multiple conversations. Over time, thresholds adjust, rules evolve, scoring models improve, the system becomes more accurate, decisions become faster, outcomes become more consistent. Adaptation is what transforms automation from static to dynamic. It is what allows the agency to operate at a higher level over time. When you put all these pieces together, something interesting happens. The agency no longer feels like a set of automations. It feels like a coordinated organism. Each part knows what to do. Each part responds to the environment. Each part moves independently, but in alignment with the whole. This is why the agency works even when I am not involved. Not because it is magical, but because the decision logic ensures that the right actions happen at the right time for the right reasons. Understanding the decision logic is what allowed me to trust the system. Once I saw how the decisions were made, I realized I didn't need to control the agency. I only needed to maintain the architecture and refine the flow. The logic handles the rest. And when you build a system that thinks in states, thresholds, conditions, dependencies, context, and evaluation, you stop managing work. You start managing structure, and the structure takes care of the execution. In the next video, I'll show you how the decision logic creates stability inside the agency. Stability is what allows the system to scale. Stability is what keeps the flow intact. And once you understand stability, you'll see how an automated agency becomes predictable, reliable, and powerful.